Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Steak Insanity, and my name is David, and this is my channel where I talk about my carnivore diet. And today we have a very special episode. It's my first interview with someone, so that's amazing in and of itself. And today I've got Susie Willows, and I'm going to let Susie explain to you what she does in a minute because I can't even say it. But Susie and I met at a networking event over Christmas, and we got into a really deep discussion about, carnivore diet and how carnivore diet sometimes could be similar to a vegan diet for certain people, and who should eat vegan and maybe who should be carnivore and all that sort of stuff. And she's super, super smart around those sorts of issues. And so first of all, Susie, welcome to the show.
Hi, Dave. Welcome. Nice to be here.
So I was doing a bit of research on your background, and I noticed that you went to university and you studied French and management studies, but that you also worked for the government, the UK government, for like 11 years for like DEFRA and looking at, water quality and some other things. So how did you go from studying French and management to getting into doing breath work and nutritional therapy and all that sort of stuff? It seems like that's a really far departure for what you studied.
Quite a way. So I studied French and management studies, and then probably in my late 20s, I got a job in the civil service. So I was actually there for about 20 years. And the bulk of that was at DEFRA, which is Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. So I guess the link there is the food, but I worked on water quality, air quality, and my last job was on chemicals and pesticides. Interestingly, during lockdown, I started doing breath work. And what I love about breath work is it lets you take a sort of objective look at your life, because you're just finding some calm in the usual chaos. And that gave me the clarity to say, do you know what? I need to change. This busy life of travel, of ministers, of civil service is not the life that I want for my second half of my life. So I started studying naturopathic nutritional therapy, which I've always loved food. I've always loved cooking. And for me, I thought, well, that will be using the power of food to heal people. So it was really exciting. I didn't know at that time whether I'd completely change careers, because I had the security blanket of a civil service pension and salary. But I
always nice.
Thought, let's go for it. So I studied the naturopathic nutritional therapy, and then I started doing the breath work because I found it personally very helpful. And then I just thought, you know what, I'm going to go on a week's breathwork course, and that got me more addicted to the breathwork. And so I carried on and then continued my training, which I've literally just completed. And so then it was probably 2 and a bit years ago now. You probably know because you looked at my LinkedIn. I thought, right, I'm going to take the plunge. I'm going to divorce myself from that monthly salary, although some people say that's more addictive than cocaine, a monthly salary. It's hard to let go of.
It is.
And take the plunge, become an entrepreneur, do my own thing and pursue my true passion, which is really, helping other people thrive and find their energy through getting optimal health.
Awesome. So from what I remember, and from what I remember from our conversations earlier, I think one of the things that we ended up talking a lot about was the fact that different people, our responsibility is to know what our bodies react to, right? And what we thrive on and what we don't thrive on. And different people and everybody is different. And so everybody can eat different things. Some people can eat wheat, some people can't eat wheat. Some people do really well on vegetables, and some people do really well on protein, and some, so, and there's allergies and there's all the other stuff that goes into that. And I think that's where we started. And, I did a post last, I don't know, April or May time maybe. And I'd watched this documentary, and it was about the twin brothers. And one of them, I think one of them was vegan and one of them went carnivore or something. And and they were trying to see how the diets would affect them over a certain amount of time. And, you know, what my opinion of it was that it turned into a vegan propaganda film about 3/4 of the way through. And I was kind of thinking that it would be really neutral and that they would, you know, kind of be quite, you know, open to whatever happened. But it did turn into this sort of vegan film. But the thing that struck me though is that all the results that the people who went on a hardcore vegan diet were very, very similar to the same results that people that go on a hardcore carnivore diet or lion diet even. And it then the light bulb came on over my head, and I just thought, it's just getting rid of processed foods. It's pretty much the thing. That's the similarity between the diets. But then, and I'm going to let you jump in here, because then you said, yeah, but it's more than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way to think about it is that just like we all have different fingerprints, all of us, our metabolism is different. And so this exactly same food would work differently for me as it would for you, as it would for somebody else and somebody else. But what we have now is we have access to so much information, and you get a lot of influencers or people that have tried a diet that was brilliant for them. And so they sort of say, this is the best diet and everybody should be on this diet. Whereas in actual fact, I think we've lost touch with ourselves and thinking, well, what is the right diet for me as opposed to the right diet for you or for somebody else.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about metabolic typing, and you know what that is, that's looking at saying, well, we're all metabolically individual, and my metabolic type will have been influenced by where my ancestors are from. So for example, if your ancestors are from the equator, they would have grown up in an environment which was very vegetarian based, you know, because you'd have had access to a lot of fruit and vegetables and that kind of thing. And so your historic diet would have been more carbohydrate based. If your ancestors have come from like North Alaska or somewhere like that, it would have been much more fat and protein based. And so that's going to influence your current metabolic type. And it's interesting you mentioned the twins, because it doesn't stop there, because of course your metabolism is also going to be influenced by your environment and your lifestyle. So generally when children are born, they have a very high metabolism, but then that might change over time. So again, it can change and vary during your lifetime. But what you find is you can identify different types. So you might have a carbohydrate type, you can have a mixed type, or you can have a protein type. And so I know that I'm a protein type. So in my late 20s, I went traveling in India, and I was totally vegetarian because I just thought Delhi belly, best way to stay safe would be avoid the, you know, and I didn't have a high budget. So the street stalls with the flies on the meat and the man with the blood on his trousers and stuff. I thought, you know what, we're going to keep avoiding that.
Appealing.
But when I got back, I'd lost a lot of weight, and I don't have weight to lose. I'm one of these people that is underweight rather than overweight. So I think at that point I knew that not eating meat, I just needed that density of nutritional value and protein in my life. But my friend who I went with, absolutely fine, you know. So I think that's an indicator that we're all different, and what might work for one might work for another. So, you know, it's quite interesting now. It's sort of very much, oh, well, vegetarian, vegan is good, but I would say it depends on how your metabolism works as to what is right for you, which sort of explains if you're going for your kind of lion carnivore diet, it could be catastrophic or it could be great. But I think you made another really interesting point, is you've got the two extremes there, and both of them are exclusion diets. So if you take a load of stuff out of your diet, if that is something that isn't serving you, it's going to do you good. I was listening to your first few days, you know, when you're like, my head, I've got the headache.
Yeah.
And, you know, I get that one day. I don't have a lot of caffeine, but if I have a day without caffeine, that's it. The
Yeah.
headache starts to kick in. So,
Oh,
you
it's
know, your
it's
body is
it's
saying,
a
I'm
bitch as
detoxing.
well. It's so bad. And it also it not only is it a headache, but it's like a tension headache as well.
Mm,
So you get it down the back of your neck and it tightens everything up. And and the weirdest thing is that I mean, I knew this because I'd done carnivore last year. I did the same thing last year on
mm,
carnivore diet. I did it for about 6 months, and then I just kind of fell off the wagon, and then it all just kind of went to pot, and a whole bunch of stuff. And I made a whole bunch of excuses to myself why I stopped doing it, but I thought, okay, no, I need to sort myself out. So I started it again, but I did it early, and I got the kind of the caffeine stuff out of the way because I knew it was coming. So I was like, and I'd had sort of excesses over Christmas, and you know how it is. And I had like 5 Christmas parties that I went to, and then I went to my
mm.
in-laws for Christmas dinner, and it's like literally every single thing that was there was like carbs. It was chocolate. It was like bread. It was everything. And the only, if I'd been on a diet, literally the only thing I could eat is turkey, right? Like that would have been it. I couldn't touch anything else. So I was like, forget it. I'm just going to start. But so I felt horrible. Like I really didn't feel well within myself anyway. And I
Mhm.
just thought, okay, if I'm going to do lion diet on the first, I know I'm not even going to have tea and coffee. And I'm not going to be able to have sugar or milk because there's no dairy, there's no sugar. There's
Mm.
like, because I used to cheat a little bit with, kind of coffees and teas and stuff like that. And I'm like, nope, I'm not doing that. I'm going super strict. So I was like, I'm not going to be able to drink that stuff. I'm going to be on water only. So I'm going to get rid of the caffeine. So that was my first plan. So I did that, suffered through those days. Then I started the lion diet, and it like didn't stop. And I was like, what the hell? Like, why is this not going away? I'd like, take paracetamol or Tylenol for people in the US. And and I would take that, and it would kind of work, but not really. And I was just like, what is going on? And then it occurred to me it's the sugar. It was the sugar, I think, that
Yeah.
I was coming off that was actually had the same sort of symptoms, which was almost worse than the caffeine. It was mad.
Yeah. Sugar's another one. It's quite addictive. So it stands to reason that you come off it.
Yeah. And it's in
And even if
everything.
you have a low sugar diet, to cut it
Mm.
out, to cut something out, to the extreme, you can really feel it.
And it was sugar and dairy. And
Mm.
the dairy I really struggle with. I don't struggle with the sugar so much. Like, for example, most mornings, and I talked about this, I think, in my video that went out today, um, about yesterday. But, I've been on water, and, I get up in the morning now, and instead of having a cup of coffee in the morning, I just have a cup of hot water if it's freezing cold in the house. Because I'm not having caffeine, I don't need caffeine in the morning. It's like
Mm.
I tend to sleep a little better, and then I wake up and I'm more refreshed. So I don't really need the coffee in the morning, but I like a warm drink because it's cold in the house. So I've been drinking water. But this morning I actually had a decaf coffee, but I just had it black. And I needed something that had some taste. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because this diet, and this diet in particular, the lion diet, I find personally a struggle because it's so limited on what you can have that even vegans get a lot more to eat.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like the lion diet's pretty savage. It is pretty
Yeah.
savage.
I was thinking about that as I was walking the dog before the podcast, thinking, could I do a lion diet and would I survive? And I think it was that as someone who loves food,
mm,
I would struggle with the blandness of it. And I was thinking, well, can you add herbs and spices or is it
yeah.
nothing? Can
Yeah.
you
I
add
mean,
spices?
there are purists,
Mm,
right? Like to give an example, and I love the people who watch my videos, and I appreciate every single one of you. And I also appreciate you comment, even if you're flaming me. So it's fine. I don't mind. But I did have somebody, I commented that I drink peppermint tea. And of course, somebody waded in and said, yeah, but lions don't eat peppermint. So that's not on the lion diet. That's just
yeah.
like, I'm not eating it. I'm just soaking the leaves in some water, and then I'm drinking the water. Like, do you know what I mean? So you can't win. You
Yeah.
have to do what works for you. And yesterday I nearly died from choking on some bacon because I was starving in the morning and I couldn't get anything else. And so I was just like, I'm just going to have a couple of pieces of bacon. And then so, which I thought was quite funny in the end, because I was like, right, that's what I get for cheating. But, but it's, but I'm still like carnivore. Do you know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
somebody supported me and was really nice and said, well, a lion would eat a pig.
Yeah.
So
A lion would eat whatever they can get their hands on.
exactly. There's
Are they
like a
paws?
lion would definitely eat a pig if it, if there was one there. So don't worry, you're probably okay. So
And I think it comes back to, why are you doing it? I've always said, well, I'll have to be flexitarian because I would never go hardcore one way or the other because I like food too much. But then when there was it's sort of like being pushed that it's good to be vegetarian. So I did a lot of research into meat and decided, right, I'm not going to buy meat from supermarkets because I don't like the way that it's very intensive and very large scale.
yeah,
I've got a local butcher. I get all my meat from there. It's locally grown, no soy, no air miles,
yeah,
pasture fed.
that's good.
I've got another farm that I go to, and I can just buy half a sheep, straight direct from the farm. So I think
Brilliant.
there are ways and means if you feel like nutritionally you need the meat, but
Yeah.
you're worrying from that perspective. But what I
Yeah.
love about what you're doing is you're getting back in touch with your body and saying what's working for me and what isn't. And I think a lot of people have sort of lost touch with that. So it's fantastic just to experiment and say, I'll throw in the bacon, or I'll go lion as far as I'm able to be lion and see what happens.
Well, this is it. And I wanted to do it. And I think, I'm trying to think if I've talked about this already on the show or not. By the time this comes out, I definitely will have talked about it. So I'll mention it now. But what's also really interesting is right now, my view is that doing a strict carnivore diet would feel like cheating at this point. If I could just have some eggs, that would be amazing. But so, and somebody did say in the comments to me, they said, they're like, I've been doing carnivore for years, and when I really get tired of doing carnivore and I think I'm really getting bored with it, instead of cheating, I actually do a few weeks of lion diet. And then that makes me then appreciate all the stuff that's on the carnivore diet that I really now wish I could have. And it's like, then you go back to it and it does feel like you're cheating again. So, but you're right. I think probably the biggest thing to it is cutting out processed food. And it's so difficult, to do that. And if you want to make, because I look at stuff like, even like, salt. If you get seasoned salt has loads of chemicals in it. It's not just salt and some seasonings. It's salt and seasonings and stuff to keep it from getting stuck together, and, binding agents and all sorts of stuff that just gets added to it, and preservatives and all sorts of. So fine, if you want to make a seasoned salt and you have all the raw ingredients and you want to put it in a mortar and pestle and you want to grind it and you want to, and you want to make it yourself and you want to put that on your steak, fine. I don't have any, I don't have any problem with that. But literally, you almost can't eat anything that you can buy in a store.
Yeah, I mean, I get Celtic salt. It's just the rock salt. So if you can go Himalayan rock salt or Celtic salt, it's much better. Then you've got some of your electrolytes in there
Yeah.
as well. But I am trying to de-supermarket my life. So I started with the meat as the first one, and then, work from there. It's more expensive. So you've got that balance, isn't it? It's always cheaper to go to the supermarket. I work in a health food shop and we support a lot of local producers. So then I can get local sauerkraut and local stuff, and that, you're
nice.
only getting the pure food, but it comes at a cost. So it's always a balance, and I think with the metabolic typing, what that is looking at is getting your body in balance. And if you're in balance, then your body will thrive. You'll have more energy, you can lose weight, you will sleep better, your immune system will be working perfectly. But when it's out of balance, then that's when things sort of start to go wrong. So
Yeah.
finding out your metabolic type and eating in the right way for that type can be transformational for people.
So how does it work? What do they actually test for?
Well, I was thinking about this before. There's sort of three ways you could work out what's my metabolic type. The really easy way, which is not foolproof, but would be, am I a kind of person like me where if I miss a meal, we know about it. I'm grumpy, I can't concentrate, and I'm ravenous. Okay. So
Yeah.
then you're veering towards you're probably a protein type. If you're the kind of person
Okay.
that misses lunch and doesn't even notice that you've missed lunch, you're more likely to be a carbohydrate type. But that's a really simple way to do it. There are online tests you can do that have got slightly more questions, and that will gives an idea. Or what I've done for myself and my family is do a hair mineral test, and then it tests the balance of the minerals in your hair. So why that can work so much better than a blood test is here's your potassium in your blood right now. So say you had a load of bananas for breakfast, your potassium might be quite high, but a few hours later it might be back down. Whereas just like when they test the athletes before the Olympics for drugs, it stays in your hair for 3 months. So you've got a good average over that period of time. And then what it looks at is the balance between the minerals. So it's not so much have you got magnesium, but how's your magnesium in relation to calcium? How's your sodium in relation to potassium? So for some people, you actually want to increase your sodium in your diet if it's not in balance with your potassium, but other people, you might want to reduce it. Whereas the general message we get is salt bad.
Yeah.
So it's really tailor making your diet to you. And for example, I have a slow metabolism, so it's kind of low blood pressure, always cold. And then it sort of
Yeah.
makes sense that I need that dense fuel to fuel
To
me.
top you up. Yeah.
Whereas other people that are always hot, kind of type A, really hyper personalities, they fare much better on a slightly less nutrient dense diet. So the hair mineral test is great because it looks at your metabolic type, but also any toxins that then you might want to clear from your body and your balance of minerals.
Interesting. Cool. So yeah, so you and I talked about this beforehand, but I want to do the test. And
Yeah.
then I'd like you to come back later once we have the results of what the test results are. And then you can give me the test results or we can talk about them again on another
Yeah. No, I'd
video.
love
And
to.
then,
That would be
and then
great.
everybody can follow up. If you're interested, you can follow up and sort of see what the results were.
Yeah.
I also suspect, and I don't know how much you want to share or not, but I suspect that, that carnivore people and protein people marry each other. So you've got one person who's like, no, I'm like a vegetarian. You got another person in the house who's like, no, I just want to eat protein. And so you can't save any money on the shopping because you still have to buy everything. That's how it is in my house. Like my wife is exactly like you described. Like she can go all day, she just doesn't eat and it
Yeah.
doesn't, bother her. Like she has to go an extremely long amount of time before she starts to get really hangry. Whereas, I get that way quite quickly. And so, yeah, I just suspect, I mean, is that how it is in your family? Or are you all the same or is it a
Uh,
mix?
no, we are. Well, my younger son, I haven't done him because he wouldn't let me cut any of his hair off.
Fair.
Um, and then me, my husband, and my elder son are all variations on a theme.
Right. Okay.
Interestingly, we have very high arsenic, which is, I think it's particular to this area where I live because I know other therapists that have also found that. So I've got a new water filter and then I'm going to test in about 6 months and see if it's made
Okay.
any difference.
And is that just because you're near Seven Oaks, aren't you?
I'm in Seven Oaks, yeah.
So is it just up there or am I going to have to deal with that as well?
Well, if we do the test, we'll be able to
I
find
guess we'll
out.
find out, won't we? Yeah. Cause I've
Yeah.
been here we're just near Lamberhurst actually. So we're just south of Tunbridge Wells.
Okay. Oh no, you'll be far enough away. When I was sharing with people that lived around this area, they were like, "It's just Seven Oaks. Why is it so high in arsenic?"
All right.
Yeah.
Someone's trying to kill all the bankers. Um, I don't know. Cool. Okay. Well, yeah, I want to do the test because I think it would be fun. I mean, I do blood tests anyway. At the minute, I just do them once a year. So I just did one at Christmas time, and actually, I did one on the 31st just before I started the diet.
Oh, okay.
And that was the whole point, was to sort of see, what my bloods were. And then I was thinking, if I can stay quite strict, I mean, I know I'm only doing lion diet for January, and then I was going to do carnivore after that. I kind of had some ambition that I might, if I got to the end of the month and I felt okay, I might extend it out. But I can tell you right now, I'm already struggling. So I'll probably stick to lion as long as I can. And if I can do it for January, then that would be great. But then I will go back and I will have some eggs and some other stuff. But I was thinking maybe after 3 months or maybe 6 months, if I can do 6 months and go to June, and then maybe do another blood test and kind of see how the results are different. That might be interesting. So yeah, if we could get the minerals and all that sort of stuff, then I'm down.
Yeah,
I
then
think it'd
yeah,
be fun. Why not?
we'll arrange that after the call, definitely.
Yes, we'll do that. There's plenty of hair in my brush that I can I can give, or I can send in. We'll talk about this at this show, but if you want to give a shout out to the company that you use now, you can, because I know you told me about it, and I'll put it in the show notes, sort of in the description, so everybody can go to it if they want to and do their own.
Yeah, you can pop it in. I mean, the company is Mineral Check. You can do it yourself. I obviously would recommend that you go through a therapist, because the reports aren't perfect. They're quite, they're tricky to interpret. So if you're going to pay that much for the report,
Yeah.
you might as well pay for the proper interpretation and someone who's going to say, well, what this means is, because the balance of, for example, your calcium and magnesium might indicate adrenal function. So it indicates other functions in the body, but you're not going to get that just from getting the report and reading it. But by all means, if someone's interested, do it, have a look, and then you can always get hold of a therapist and say, I've done this test, can I work with you with the test? So
Yeah, 100%. And it's called Mineral Check?
Mineral Check. Yeah, they do them in the UK, and I think there is a US company. If you Google hair tissue mineral analysis, you can find it.
Yeah, so just for anybody listening, I will put a link in the description, but it is mineralcheck.com. So it's pretty straightforward to find.
Is it
So
like-
just Googled it to have a look. Cool. So you live basically a low carb kind of lifestyle?
I don't actually.
No?
So I am probably quite high fat, quite high protein. I think I probably need more protein than I have. I've trialed low carb, but I lost weight, so I've upped the carbs again. So I'm a bit of an anomaly, because often when you have a slow metabolism, you tend to put on weight. I don't easily put on weight, so I'm one of these people
Right.
that does actually I just need a lot of food, really, I think. So it's just as well I'm a big foodie.
I can say to everybody else, she is a bunch of nothing, basically. You're tiny.
What I would say is I don't eat processed foods.
Yeah.
So I do eat as far as possible, apart from over Christmas, all whole foods, and I try to avoid gluten.
Yeah. I saw Andrew Huberman was talking about just getting off processed foods. He's like, and he does a lot of stuff obviously around health and that sort of thing, massive, doctor, influencer, all that. And I think he was saying, if you just eat meat as the primary thing in your diet, but then you basically have raw vegetables, like you can cook them, but just don't buy them from anywhere, like zero processed food. And he's like, and go to the gym, you'll be totally fine. He's like, it's the stuff in the processed food. And I think, and I actually, God, I have so many questions. One, let me go back to one that just to ask really quickly, and then we'll go on to, hold on, I'm just writing them down so I don't forget. So the first one was slow metabolism. So does that mean that you have to watch your caloric intake as well? Because I find, like, everything says, oh, men need to have 2,500 calories. If I ate 2,500 calories a day, I would be the size of a house, even of raw food or whatever. Like, I've worked out from I have an annoyingly detailed spreadsheet that I keep for my how much exercise I get, how many steps I take every day, how many calories I have, what my macros are, what my weight is. Like I keep an insane spreadsheet. So from that, I've learned though that if I have 14 to 1500 calories a day is sort of my sweet spot
Mm.
where I can maintain if I'm eating kind of a good diet. And then if I start throwing in a bunch of crap that I'm eating, even if I'm having 1500, I'll start to gain back again. And so I guess what I was wondering is that part of a slow metabolism, is that people with a slow metabolism also need to watch their caloric intake as well? Or is that's just something that's totally different from person to person?
So, I mean, calories do measure energy, but I would say shift away from calories because it depends what the calories are. Like you could have a cake that's got
Well, yeah,
it's got your calories, but it's
yeah,
also got your emulsifiers, your
yeah,
dodgy fats, your chemicals, all of this crap.
exactly.
So when you eat that cake, your body is going to use energy just digesting it. It's like if you think of foods as positive and negative, that is mainly negative because you're just using energy detoxifying that cake. Whereas if you had, like, take a beetroot, it's still got a high GI, it's quite a sweet vegetable, but it's got nitric oxide in, which dilates the blood vessels, which can be good if you've got high blood pressure. So it's giving you so much more than the cake, even though, and I don't know if they are the same, it's just by way of example that they're
Mm,
both kind of quite high GI food. And with GI, what I mean is glycemic index. So it's
yep,
the speed with which the glucose from that food gets into your bloodstream. So the main aim with any meal would be to balance your blood sugar and get a sort of steady influx of glucose rather than go sweet, have a spike, then you have a crash, and then go up and then go
that's
down.
right.
But linking it back to your metabolic type,
Yep.
your metabolic type will dictate how you cope with sugar.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I suspect that sugar is probably one of the hardest things for most people to get over, particularly people on a standard American diet.
Mm.
Um, because this stuff. I mean, and I've told this story before, but I went and saw my mom like 2 3 years ago. I guess I was in Austin for about 6 weeks, and I gained 15 pounds, and I literally didn't change anything that I ate from the same stuff that I ate in the UK, and I was still running 5K 5 days a week. So I was getting plenty of exercise. I was eating the same meals, just with different ingredients in the US. And I
Wow.
put on 15 pounds when I was there. And I was like, what in the hell? And like, I don't know. I have some thoughts. And was my other question that I sort of wrote down that I wanted to get to was, and this is something that I also want to talk to Uncle Beef about. And he's a friend of both of ours. And we both know him. He's a butcher that we know that's in our networking group. But and you mentioned this as well, is about the quality of the meats even and the foods and stuff that you get in grocery stores. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts, because I think, sorry, I'm jumping in. I should just ask you the question. I'm being a terrible host. I apologize, but I'm just talking a lot. Um, but yeah, go ahead. What do you have thoughts on that? I mean, obviously you do, because you've said that you buy from your butcher instead of the store.
Yeah.
But what's your thinking behind it, and what is there something in particular, a specific reason that you buy from the butcher?
So I think quality is everything. And I think if you look at our grandparents compared to where we are now,
Yeah,
uh, our environment has changed so much. So there are more chemicals in the environment, there's more chemicals in our food, we have a much more high stress lifestyle. So whereas, oh, and then all our crops are depleted because we're using intensive chemicals to grow the crops and the soils are diminished
yep,
in quality. So I don't know the stats, but most people now are deficient in magnesium. Magnesium is needed for about 200 chemical reactions in the body for energy creation, for digestion. It is so important, but yet the magnesium in our crops has significantly reduced. So whereas my grandmother might have had her, green leafy veg and all of that, she would have got a much higher dose from that veg than we do right now. So the
Right.
quality of our crops is going down. Plus, then there's more chemicals used on them. So unless you're buying organic, which again comes down to cost, your body is having to detoxify the chemicals because, we have residues that are allowed on crops, but there's still going to be some residue from the chemicals, I'm afraid. So
Yeah.
you've then got to detoxify that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So our bodies are in this environment where if you want your body in balance, it is much harder now than it used to be because we're exposed to so much more stress. And so therefore you need much more antioxidants to balance out that oxidative stress. So like meat, if you
Mm.
buy chicken, it's very, very cheap
Yeah.
in the supermarket. And there's a reason why, because it has a rubbish diet and a rubbish life. And so that chicken is only going to be as good as the food it's been fed and the life it's had. Whereas if you get something that's pasture for life and has been out in a field grazing with a wide, diverse range of grasses and everything, it's going to
Mm.
have more omega-3, it's going to be more nutritionally beneficial. But unfortunately, there's always a cost element, and so you have to prioritize in your life what is important for you. But I guess as a nutritional therapist who loves food, I prioritize food so where I can. And if you can buy direct from farmers or local butchers, you'll be surprised they are not more expensive than the supermarkets. I'm
No.
so pleased you're getting Uncle Beef on here. His meat is lovely and he's passionate about getting good quality beef. So for
Yeah.
me, local is where it's at, your local fruit and veg. Shout out for Kemp Veg Box. They do veg boxes. They're not organic, but they are minimal in terms of the pesticides and all of that. It's delivered to your door. It's got mud on it, it's not as perfect with its plastic bag and all of that.
That's all right.
And you can get variety. If you get a veg box, you get a good variety, which is really important. Not for you
And
carnivores, but I'm
yeah,
assuming most people that do carnivore, it's like a time limited thing. I think it would be very hard to be a permanent carnivore and possibly
I
not
think
live
a
your
lot of people are. I think a lot of people now are moving on to living carnivore, and
life.
I think people do Lion Diet. Like Lion Diet is super extreme, and obviously Jordan Peterson and his daughter Michaela are probably the biggest proponents of the diet. And Michaela found that she found the diet pretty much by accident because she had so many health problems, and just she did it purely for the elimination aspect. And what she found is she basically can't eat anything else. And if she doesn't want her health problems to come back, she literally can only eat ruminant meat, water, and salt. That's it. And so that's all she eats. And so Jordan tried it, and sort of he recovered from a bunch of the symptoms from illnesses that he had as well. I think he has green beans also. So that's the only other thing that he eats. So he eats ruminant meats and green beans and salt and water. So,
Wow.
but most people, yeah, I don't think most people could sustain a lion diet, although there are some, but most people don't. But a carnivore diet, I think, is because particularly if you include the dairy, so you've got eggs and you've got yogurt and you've got some cheese and those sorts of things, and milk, and when you add those back in, I think it's not so hard. It's really not. But then every once in a while, I do just find that I want like a salad. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Do you know what I mean? Again, because it's unprocessed. It's like as clean as you can get, pretty much. And if you're just doing that and you don't put dressing on it, or you make your own dressing, so you've got some oil and some vinegar that you've done yourself, then fine. The oil's not fantastic. Some people will say don't drink the oil, it'll kill you, but whatever. You have some nice olive oil, whatever, shake it up, some vinegar, a couple spices, put it in, you make your own dressing. Again, fine. No emulsifiers, no chemicals, no preservatives, no colorants, not, all that stuff that you get from anything that you buy at the store, because they have to put it in there because fresh stuff doesn't last. So yeah, I think, that's okay every once in a while. But yeah, I mean, there's loads of people, I have tons of people make comments on the channel all the time. They're like, oh, I've been carnivore for 6 years and, haven't been, have ultimately lost, some people have lost hundreds of pounds, and keep it off and they're totally happy. And, they're like, I would never change. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and I suppose as a nutritional therapist, I'd be thinking, oh, well, where are you getting your fiber and, feeding your gut microbiome? But what I love is that people are taking control of their own health and they're saying, do you know what? I've tried this and it's really working
yeah,
for me. And they didn't say, I've signed up to do carnivore for the rest of my life. They're saying, I've signed up to do it for as long as it serves me and it works for me. And I think getting back in touch with just your body and how it works is got to be
yeah,
helpful for anyone. And to be fair, meat is probably more beneficial than all the processed stuff that we've been eating before,
100%.
So
Yeah,
comes back to where you started,
yeah.
which is if you cut out the ultra processed, that's a very good place to start, and then you can decide from there.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that's the main thing. But yeah, I do much better on it. I mean, my arthritis, which is what I did it as elimination in the beginning when I started last January. I was working out, I was in the gym a lot, and I had like tendonitis in
Mm.
like all of my joints. I just had really like sore tendons and stuff. It was like not the cartilage, literally the tendons. And I had arthritis in my fingers really badly. And I was just like, oh, this is terrible. So I just thought, do you know what? I'll try it just on a whim. And then I just created this channel because I felt if I were doing the videos and and I was just putting them out there, it gave me a little bit of motivation to do it, right? And might help me do it, which it did. And but yeah, the symptoms went away in like 2 weeks, and I was just like, all right, okay. So it does
And
actually
that's
work.
where we've lost the power of food. Food is our
Yeah.
fuel. I mean, it
Mm,
can do wonderful things, and we sort of forget that. You had a car and you put the wrong fuel in, you soon notice it, don't you? But we're
exactly.
so adaptable. You can live on the wrong fuel for such a long time, but underneath it's kind of gradually wearing away all the different bits where you could be thriving.
That's a great analogy. It's like putting water in your oil, right?
Yeah.
Instead of oil. It's
Yeah.
like your engine will run for a while, but then it will eventually grind itself
Yeah.
to a halt and it won't work anymore. I like it. Or cooking oil or something. Yeah, there's something in there, but water's not the best example. Awesome. Susie, I'm conscious of time. Thank you very much for having a chat with me today. I'm going to go to Mineral Check and I'll do the test with Mineral Check and then I'll get you the results once I get them back. Do you know how long that normally takes? I assume it's a couple of
Well,
weeks or something.
yeah, I'll tell you what, I can organize it for you and they can
Okay,
just send
cool.
it direct because then they'll send me a report. I can look at it for you and send it over to you. So that's fine. I can do that
Okay, cool.
straight after.
So we'll
Um,
arrange that once we're done with the conversation. We'll
yeah,
arrange that, and then whenever the results come back, then we'll hop on another. We'll just do another quick chat for 20 minutes or 15
yeah.
minutes, however long it takes, and we'll go through the results and we'll talk about that. And I'm sure some people will be interested in seeing what that is. So yeah, that'd be cool. Okay, so with all the stuff that we've talked about so far, do you have any tips that might help people?
So I thought about this a little bit before, and when I was saying about I couldn't do a lion diet because it was so bland. I think my tip for you, because you said, oh, I can't get venison. There's actually a really good venison farm near me called Chart Farm, so I can get you some meat from there. Um, but I would get a slow cooker. I'd put your diced venison in with your water and your salt and just let it cook all day. If you're allowed herbs and spices, I'd put them in, but then you'll have this beautifully tender venison stew that you can just get out, warm up for breakfast. So it just adds some variety, even
Yeah.
just put in a bay leaf or some thyme or any herbs and spices would make it more interesting. My other tip was, and you are doing this with bells on, if anyone's going to go for a carnivore diet or a lion diet, journal, 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 how's my energy? How's my sleep? How's my what was I thinking? And has my focus, my concentration,
Yep.
because the real value of doing it is to learn about yourself, and it's a difficult learning lesson to go with such an extreme diet. So you might as well get the absolute benefit from it.
Yep.
And then the other thing that links in that what we were saying is if then you're going to introduce foods, again, you want to be learning from it. So don't go and have your latte and your sugar and your caffeine because we know they're not the right ones, but add in some veg, have a salad like you're having, or add in some veg, that kind of thing. And then that helps you with the elimination to find out what was it that was really causing me the issues. You know, if you do a month adding in veg, then for me, you're getting in some of that fiber that you need. And if you then don't have any symptoms, you're thinking, oh, okay, I don't have to go this extreme. I can get my veg in. So I think that's really helpful. I think try and enjoy it. This is the hard bit.
Yeah.
But if, as you do, you embrace it and you enjoy it, because people don't realize how much our brain and our bodies are connected. So if you embark on a diet because you're thinking, oh, I've got to do this, you know, already that ain't going to work. Whereas if you embrace it, and the people that do carnivore diet, of what I know, although I don't really follow that vibe so much, they're really into it and excited by it.
Yeah.
And so I'm
Yeah.
sure, you know, from everything I know about brain and body, that is going to help.
Yeah. I think people get really excited because I think a lot of people, there's obviously a subset of people who do it just purely to lose weight. But I think the majority of people who start out on a carnivore diet and certainly a lion diet do it for the elimination aspect because they have physical problems and they're trying to do anything and they want to get off taking medicine. They want to get off the drugs. They want to, because they know that's not good either. And it's expensive. And, you know, particularly if you're like in the US somewhere, it's you know, medical treatment is super expensive unless you have government insurance. But, you know, and so I think that's why people become so fanatic about it, because if you've got MS, like not that it does MS is a bad thing, but some autoimmune thing, or you've got diabetes type 2, like, you know, a lot of people have had hardcore, you know, been hardcore diabetes type 2. They do this, they come out of it, they're like, they're not diabetic anymore, right? And you know, and then the joint pain goes away and all these weird physical symptoms that they've had go away. They can come off their medicines, you know, they go back, their doctor's like, what the hell have you been doing? Like, how has this got better? I don't understand. This is not something that's generally curable. And it's like, well, yeah, I just changed my diet and I feel better and I'm not taking those tablets anymore. And I think that's what creates those, you know, kind of super fan type people, because we just realize that it works.
Yeah, which is the power of the food again. And the stats on diabetes are fantastic, aren't they?
Yeah.
Really good. So.
And the other one is, of course, that they're calling Alzheimer's, you know, type 3 diabetes now. And what they're saying is that the problem develops when you're in your 30s and your 40s, and it's your diet in your 30s and 40s that doesn't then cause the problem until you're in your 60s, 70s, and 80s. But that you need to be, you know, conscious of your diet when you're younger, and that, you know, it's those effects of, you know, all the effects of, you know, being overweight possibly, and it's like type 3 diabetes. So, you know, it all compounds as you get older, which I think is super interesting. So again, it's not a, you know, it's not kind of an approved medical term yet, but that is, you know, what the most current research is saying.
Yeah. It's the car analogy again, isn't it? You know, the body is amazing. It will make adaptations so that it can carry on and carry on and carry on. But unfortunately, when the symptoms start showing, the issue has been going on for years. So
right.
It's, you know, accumulated problems. So as I said, I'm a big fan of anyone stepping in and making changes and learning about their body.
Cool. Okay. So I can take that and I can just cut that in somewhere in between something else. So that'll be cool. So where can people find you?
So my company is called happyhealthylonger.co.uk. So you can find me there. I'm on Instagram and on Facebook. So and I'm doing a online webinar in a couple of weeks on food and mood. So just what you can do to
Awesome.
eat to help your mood, and also breathwork techniques to help reduce anxiety. So I have a son doing exams, so it's targeted at parents of anxious children, but I usually find you need to calm the parent before you calm the child. So I thought I'd put it
Yeah.
out there in the exams period.
Perfect. That's a great idea. Okay, well, I'll put links to everything in the notes anyway, so people can, you know, click through if they want to tap you up for some advice and some help.
Perfect.
And yeah, we'll speak to you soon.
See you soon. Thanks, Dave.